Have you ever felt that a relationship, which was once a source of comfort and joy, has slowly turned into something that erodes your inner peace? What if the very connections you hold dear are causing you more harm than healing? Relationships, at their core, are meant to be a sanctuary, places where we find growth, love, and mutual respect. But what happens when that bond starts to fracture? When the love and care you once shared becomes the very thing that weighs you down? It's in these moments that we must ask ourselves a difficult yet necessary question. Is it time to let go for the sake of our peace and spiritual growth? 1. When the relationship is rooted in harm. A relationship should be a sanctuary, a place where both individuals can grow, feel safe, and experience mutual respect. Instead of being a burden, it should be a nurturing force, like the gentle stream that guides the flower toward the sun. Relationships at their best foster our well-being, nourish our souls, and help us rise to our highest potential. But what happens when that very connection turns toxic, when it begins to erode your peace rather than enhance it? Picture a Zen monk deep in his practice who comes across a venomous snake. Out of compassion, he tries to heal the snake, despite the danger it represents. Yet time and time again, the snake bites him, causing him pain and harm. The monk, wise and patient, keeps trying to help, believing that compassion will eventually change the snake's nature. However, after repeated bites, the monk comes to a deep realization: no matter how much compassion he offers, the snake's nature will never change. The nature of the snake is to harm, and thus the monk must let go of his futile attempt to heal it. This story resonates deeply with relationships that harm us. Just like the monk, we often stay in relationships hoping for change, believing that love and kindness will eventually heal the wounds that are being inflicted on us. We believe that if we just hold on a little longer, things will get better. However, if the other person's nature is to hurt or undermine us, no amount of love or patience can change that. The most loving thing we can do for ourselves and for them is to walk away. In Buddhism, attachment is often seen as the root of suffering. We cling to people, to situations, even to our own perceptions of how things should be. But when the attachment becomes toxic, it only binds us to suffering. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is an act of profound self-love. It is also an act of love toward the other person, who may need to face the consequences of their actions and heal in their own time and way. By stepping away, you create space for both of you to find the healing and growth that you deserve. Relationships that bring harm are like chains. They weigh heavily on your spirit, making it harder for you to breathe freely, think clearly, or live fully. They pull you away from your purpose, diverting your attention from the things that truly matter. These chains keep you anchored in a place of negativity and pain, making it nearly impossible to move forward. Recognizing when a relationship has become a chain is the first step toward freedom. It's the moment when you realize that staying in that relationship is not an act of love or loyalty. It is an act of self-sabotage. Choosing to free yourself from such relationships is an act of liberation, not just for you, but also for the other person involved. It's a way of saying, I love you enough to let you go. I love myself enough to choose peace. Walking away doesn't mean you stop caring for that person. It doesn't mean that you discard the love you once shared. It simply means that you recognize the relationship has outlived its purpose, and holding on any longer will only cause further pain. Letting go is not easy, especially when the relationship has deep roots in your life. There are memories, shared experiences, and emotions that bind you to the other person. But these connections, if left unaddressed, can continue to poison your soul, preventing you from living in alignment with your highest truth. The beauty of impermanence, a fundamental Buddhist teaching, is that nothing is permanent, neither joy nor sorrow, neither love nor pain. Everything changes, and so too can your relationships. It's important to remember that leaving doesn't diminish the love you once shared. It doesn't erase the memories, the good times, or the lessons learned. It simply acknowledges that the relationship no longer serves your well-being, and continuing to hold on to it will only stifle your growth. By stepping away, you make room for healing and transformation, both for yourself and the other person. Imagine for a moment a garden. You've spent time nurturing it, watering it, and tending to it. But after a season, the flowers begin to wilt. No matter how much you care for them, some plants simply cannot thrive in that environment anymore. Rather than holding on to them and watching them die slowly, the most compassionate thing you can do is gently pull them from the soil and make room for new, vibrant growth. Relationships too need to be cared for, but when they no longer nourish your spirit, it's time to let them go, making space for something that will. By choosing to walk away from harmful connections, you are embracing the Buddhist principle of non-attachment. This doesn't mean you don't care or that you are indifferent. It simply means that you are no longer defined by the pain and suffering the relationship brings. You are choosing peace over conflict, growth over stagnation, and healing over harm. Remember, the greatest act of self-love is to create space for your own healing and growth. This doesn't mean you sever your ties with the world. Rather, it means you recognize when a relationship is no longer serving your highest good, and you choose to release it with grace. By doing so, you free yourself to experience deeper, more meaningful connections. Relationships rooted in respect, understanding, and compassion. In the end, walking away from relationships that harm you isn't an act of rejection. It's an act of liberation. It's a way of honoring your own worth, protecting your peace, and embracing the wisdom of impermanence. By doing so, you allow both yourself and the other person to heal and grow in the way that's truly meant for you. 2. When you feel unseen or unheard. We are all like flowers reaching out for the sunlight of recognition and understanding. Just as flowers need sunlight to bloom, we too need acknowledgement and validation from others to truly thrive. In a healthy relationship, we find the space to grow, to be seen, to express ourselves fully. When this happens, we feel alive, understood, and connected. The people around us nourish us, just as the sun nourishes a flower, allowing us to flourish into our truest, most authentic selves. However, when this essential need for recognition is not met, when our words go unheard, our feelings are dismissed, and our essence is overlooked, the very foundation of the relationship begins to erode. The relationship no longer serves as a garden for growth, but rather becomes a place where we wither in silence, struggling to be seen or heard. We may try harder to prove our worth, to speak louder, to mold ourselves into someone we think will be recognized. But this is where the true harm lies, in our desperate attempts to bend ourselves into something we are not, all in the hope of gaining attention and affection from others. Zen philosophy teaches us that we bloom not for the admiration of others, but for our own joy. A flower does not seek validation from the world. It blooms because it is in its nature to do so. It blooms because it is true to itself, growing towards the light, not for the purpose of being admired, but simply to exist and thrive in its own right. We too must learn to bloom for our own sake, to be true to our essence, and to cherish the unique beauty within us, regardless of how others perceive us. When we constantly feel unseen or unheard, we are being asked to question whether the relationship truly serves our higher self. If those around us fail to recognize our true essence, if they continuously dismiss our feelings, invalidate our words, or ignore our needs, it is not a reflection of our worth, but rather a reflection of the limitations of that relationship. We may begin to feel like we are simply existing to meet others' expectations, molding ourselves into shapes that are not true to who we are, all in the hope that we will finally be noticed. But this is a dangerous cycle, one that slowly erodes our sense of self. Letting go in this situation is incredibly difficult. It's hard to walk away from someone who has been part of your life for so long, someone you've invested love, time, and energy into. The emotional pull is strong. You may have memories together, shared experiences, and a history that binds you. The thought of leaving can feel like a betrayal, not just to them, but to yourself and the connection you once cherished. It's natural to resist this change, to hold on to the hope that things will get better, that eventually they will see you for who you truly are. But continuing to stay in a relationship where you feel unseen is more painful than letting go. It's like being a flower that's been planted in a pot too small for its roots, unable to grow, unable to reach its full potential. The longer you stay, the more you suppress your true self, the more you diminish your essence in the hope of gaining the recognition you deserve. And in doing so, you lose sight of who you are meant to become. When you constantly strive to be seen, to be heard by someone who is unwilling or unable to see you for who you truly are, it takes an immense toll on your well-being. It's important to recognize that letting go doesn't mean erasing the past or invalidating the connection you shared. It simply means that the relationship has reached its natural conclusion and is no longer contributing to your growth in a positive way. You are not abandoning the other person. Rather, you are choosing to honor your own journey. Just as a tree sheds its leaves in the fall to make room for new growth in the spring, so too must we release what no longer nourishes us, so we can continue our personal evolution. When we let go of relationships that do not see us, we are not just freeing ourselves from an unhealthy attachment, we are allowing ourselves to step into the fullness of our own lives. We are choosing to be seen by those who will appreciate us for who we are, without the need to change, to prove, or to shrink ourselves. This is where true liberation lies, in finding the courage to be ourselves, unconditionally, and in seeking relationships that celebrate our authentic being. This may be one of the most difficult lessons of all, but it is also one of the most transformative. By letting go of the ties that bind you to relationships that fail to see or hear you, you open the door to new possibilities. You allow yourself to be fully seen, fully heard, and fully loved. And in doing so, you free yourself to bloom to your fullest potential, exactly as you are meant to. The act of letting go is a beautiful and courageous step toward embracing who you are, without apology, without fear, and without the need for validation. It's a journey of rediscovery, where you come to understand that your worth is not dependent on the approval of others, but on the love and recognition you give yourself. And once you learn to see and hear your own essence, you will naturally attract relationships that reflect that love and respect, creating a life of peace, joy, and fulfillment. In the end, the most meaningful connections are those where both individuals can truly see each other for who they are, without masks or pretenses, but with an open heart and a willingness to understand. By letting go of the relationships that no longer serve your growth, you make space for these authentic connections to blossom and thrive, bringing you closer to the life you are meant to live. 3. When the relationship hinders your growth is the very essence of life. It is the force that drives us forward, compelling us to evolve and expand our horizons. As individuals, we are constantly striving to become the best versions of ourselves, to live with purpose, and to move closer to enlightenment. Whether through spiritual awakening, personal development, or professional progress, growth is what fuels our journey. However, the path to growth is not always smooth. Sometimes the relationships in our lives, whether with family, friends, or romantic partners, can hinder our progress and keep us rooted in a place of stagnation. When someone in your life constantly anchors you to negativity, belittles your dreams, or resists the changes you're making in your life, that relationship has become a barrier, an obstacle to your growth. Instead of nurturing your potential, it confines you to a small, narrow space. You may find yourself feeling discouraged, unable to reach your full potential, and trapped in a cycle that doesn't allow you to move forward. Buddhism teaches us that attachment to negative energy or toxic relationships can keep us bound to suffering, preventing us from progressing on the path of awakening. If we remain in these relationships, we risk losing sight of who we truly are and the purpose we are meant to fulfill in this lifetime. But growth requires freedom, a freedom that allows us to be ourselves, to dream, to fail, and to learn. A relationship that holds us back or ties us down is not supporting our growth. It is suppressing it. Letting go of these kinds of relationships is not an act of abandonment. It's not a rejection of the other person, nor is it a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it's an affirmation of your own worth and your commitment to your spiritual journey. By stepping away from relationships that hinder your growth, you are choosing to align with your higher self, to honor your true path, and to protect your peace of mind. You are acknowledging that your growth is more important than clinging to a connection that no longer serves you. When someone discourages your ambitions or mocks your quest for enlightenment, they are not guiding you. They are blocking your light. Their words and actions create doubt in your mind, stifling the fire of your dreams. They may tell you that your goals are unrealistic, that your spiritual practices are a waste of time, or that you should prioritize other more practical concerns over your inner growth. These words, whether spoken intentionally or out of ignorance, can be incredibly damaging to your sense of self. A person who truly cares for you and wants you to grow will encourage you, support your dreams, and help you become the person you are meant to be. They will not try to suppress your light or bring you down to their level. True love, in all its forms, encourages growth. It challenges you to be the best version of yourself, even if that means going down different paths or making difficult decisions. When you find yourself in a relationship that discourages your growth or limits your potential, it's important to take a step back and reflect. Ask yourself, is this relationship helping me become the person I am meant to be? Is it allowing me to fulfill my highest purpose? Or is it keeping me small, preventing me from growing into the fullest version of myself? Freeing yourself from the weight of such relationships can be incredibly liberating. It allows you to create the space you need to heal, to grow, and to discover your true potential. By removing toxic or limiting relationships from your life, you give yourself permission to focus on your own growth and to prioritize the things that truly matter. This doesn't mean that you discard all relationships that challenge you. It means you choose to release those that only drag you down and prevent you from evolving. Letting go of relationships that hinder your growth is a powerful act of self-respect and self-love. It is about choosing to honor your path, no matter how difficult or uncertain it may seem. By doing so, you create room for new, healthier connections that will nurture and support your growth relationships, that encourage you to shine your light, pursue your dreams, and embrace your journey toward enlightenment. Remember, growth is a natural process. It happens whether we are ready or not. But for that growth to truly flourish, we must surround ourselves with people and environments that encourage it. Relationships should be a source of strength and inspiration, not a weight that holds us back. When you let go of what no longer serves your growth, you open the door to new possibilities and a brighter future. Trust that by choosing to grow, you are stepping into a life of greater freedom, authenticity, and fulfillment. 4. When love turns conditional. True love in its purest form is unconditional. It flows effortlessly, like a river finding its way through the landscape, nurturing everything it touches without demanding anything in return. It is a love that supports, encourages, and empowers without expectations or limitations. This kind of love is not bound by conditions or rules. It is freely given, without the need for performance or reciprocity. It is expansive, not constrictive. When we experience true love, we feel safe to be our authentic selves, to grow and to evolve. It doesn't require us to change, to prove our worth, or to meet impossible standards. It simply allows us to be. However, when love becomes conditional, it changes. It shifts from being an act of giving to being a transaction, a contract where expectations and demands replace the pure exchange of affection. In these types of relationships, love is no longer freely given. It comes with strings attached. It may be used as a tool to control, manipulate, or mold the other person into a version of themselves that aligns with someone else's needs, desires, or ideals. In essence, when love becomes conditional, it is no longer love at all. It becomes a form of control. True love nurtures, it doesn't suffocate. Just as a healthy tree grows toward the sun, free from obstruction, true love allows both individuals to flourish in their own unique ways. It supports the growth of the other, providing the space needed for each person to become the best version of themselves. In relationships where love is unconditional, there is no need to prove worth, to please the other, or to be someone you are not. Love simply exists, and in that freedom, both individuals grow together, hand in hand, respecting each other's individual paths. When love turns conditional, however, it becomes a performance. You find yourself constantly striving to meet the expectations of your partner, perhaps altering your behavior, thoughts, or actions to align with what they desire. There may be a sense of walking on eggshells, always fearing that if you don't meet their standards, the love you receive will diminish. The relationship no longer feels like a space for growth. Instead, it feels like a place where you are constantly having to prove your worth. This kind of love is exhausting, and over time, it erodes the sense of self. If the love in your life has turned into something that demands constant performance or fitting into someone else's mold, it is no longer authentic love. It is no longer about mutual respect, understanding, and acceptance. Instead, it becomes about control, manipulation, and expectation. The natural flow of love has been obstructed, and both individuals are now caught in a cycle of trying to meet needs and demands that are ultimately not aligned with true affection or genuine connection. Letting go of such relationships is an act of liberation, not just for you, but for the other person as well. It allows both individuals to rediscover the purity of unconditional love. In doing so, you open the door to a love that is free from expectations, one that celebrates each person for who they truly are, without the need to change or conform. It's about giving each other the space to grow and flourish, individually and together. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning the person, it means releasing the patterns of conditionality that have taken hold in the relationship. It means allowing both individuals to breathe, to reclaim their true selves, and to experience love as it was meant to be, pure, unconditional, and expansive. True love is not about molding someone else to meet your needs or expectations. It is about recognizing, accepting, and cherishing the person as they are, in their fullness. By stepping away from relationships that have become transactional, you are creating the space for love to flow freely once again. You are opening the door to healthier, more authentic relationships, where both individuals can truly thrive and grow. In releasing the need for conditional love, you allow yourself and the other person to rediscover the freedom and joy that comes with love in its truest form. Ultimately, love that is conditional is not love at all. It is a set of expectations, a demand for conformity, a chain that restricts freedom. But love that is unconditional, pure, unbound, and free is the kind of love that nourishes, that uplifts, and that allows both people to become the best version of themselves. Letting go of conditional love is the first step toward experiencing this deeper, more fulfilling kind of connection. 5. When forgiveness becomes impossible. Buddhism teaches that forgiveness is a powerful tool for healing, a way to release the negative emotions that weigh down the heart. It's a path to peace, freeing ourselves from anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge. Forgiveness is not just about pardoning the actions of others. It's about liberating our own hearts from the shackles of pain. When we forgive, we let go of the bitterness that consumes us, making room for compassion and healing. But forgiveness, as powerful as it is not always enough to repair what has been broken. Forgiveness doesn't mean tolerating repeated harm, nor does it require us to stay in relationships that continually hurt us. Sometimes, no matter how much we wish to forgive, the damage inflicted is too deep, too severe to be healed by the simple act of letting go of anger. The Buddhist concept of impermanence teaches us that everything changes, but there are some wounds that may never fully heal, and there are some relationships that may never return to a place of peace and balance. A Zen proverb says, "A broken pot may still hold water, but a shattered one cannot." This profound metaphor speaks to the limits of what can be repaired. A broken pot may still have some use. It may still hold a small amount of water, but once it is shattered, it is beyond repair. Similarly, some relationships, no matter how much we try to forgive and fix them, are so fractured that they cannot be healed. When trust is shattered, when respect is gone, when the harm has been too great, holding on only prolongs the suffering for both parties. It creates a cycle of hurt and resentment that becomes harder to break with each passing day. Walking away from these relationships is not a failure of forgiveness. It is an act of compassion for both yourself and the other person. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to release the other person from the relationship, and in doing so, release yourself as well. By staying in a relationship that continues to wound you, you both remain trapped in the past, unable to move forward into a healthier future. The constant tension and unresolved pain prevent both of you from healing and growing. Walking away opens up the possibility for true healing, allowing forgiveness and boundaries to coexist. It is important to recognize that forgiveness doesn't always require you to remain in the same space as the person who hurt you. Forgiveness doesn't mean you need to continue enduring the pain, the disrespect, or the harm. The act of letting go of anger and resentment is an internal process that frees you, but it does not mean you must continue to allow someone to harm you. Boundaries are just as important as forgiveness. They are the means by which we protect ourselves and maintain our peace while still choosing to forgive. In fact, walking away may be the most profound form of forgiveness. It is an act of self-respect, an acknowledgement that you deserve better than a relationship that continues to break you down. It allows both you and the other person the space to heal, to reflect, and to grow. Often we hold on to toxic relationships out of a sense of duty, fear, or guilt. We convince ourselves that by staying, we are being noble, that we are somehow doing the right thing by enduring the suffering. But in reality, staying in a painful relationship can prevent both parties from growing and healing. True healing comes when we have the courage to step away and allow space for new growth. This space can be filled with self-love, with the time and care you need to restore your sense of worth and peace. It can also open up the possibility for new, healthier relationships where trust, respect, and love can flourish. Sometimes forgiveness involves letting go of the person, not because you wish them harm, but because you recognize that continuing to stay in the relationship only keeps both of you stuck in a cycle of pain. Forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves. It doesn't always come easy, and it doesn't always mean reconciliation. In some cases, the most compassionate act is to forgive, let go, and walk away. By doing so, you create the space for both healing and growth, both for yourself and for the other person. It is an act of love that allows you to move forward with peace in your heart, free from the chains of past wounds. Ultimately, forgiveness and boundaries are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they work hand in hand. You can forgive someone and still choose to protect yourself by setting boundaries that honor your well-being. True forgiveness is not about condoning the wrongs that were done to you. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying that pain and letting go of the resentment that keeps you tethered to the past. It is about reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your ability to move forward in your life with strength and grace. And sometimes that means walking away, knowing that by doing so, you are choosing to heal and to honor your own journey. 6. When lies erode trust, trust is the bedrock of all meaningful relationships. Without trust, no relationship can truly thrive. Trust is the invisible thread that holds people together, fostering a sense of security, openness, and emotional intimacy. It's the foundation on which love, respect, and mutual understanding are built. Without trust, we are left feeling vulnerable and disconnected, constantly questioning the authenticity of the bond we share with others. When lies enter a relationship, the sacred bond of trust, or satya in Buddhism, truth, is fractured. The essence of what makes the relationship genuine and meaningful is eroded, leaving behind an empty shell of what once was. Zen teachings remind us that lies are like shadows. They cannot support the weight of a real connection. Shadows are insubstantial and fleeting. They have no substance or depth. Similarly, lies, no matter how carefully constructed, are flimsy and lack the strength to hold the foundation of trust in place. Lies may appear as truths for a while, but over time, they fade, revealing the emptiness behind them. When we are deceived, our hearts and minds become clouded with doubt and suspicion, and the relationship begins to unravel. The bond that was once strong and secure becomes fragile, unable to withstand the weight of dishonesty. Trust, once shattered, is not something that can be easily repaired. Like a fine piece of porcelain that has been broken, it may be pieced back together, but the cracks will always remain. The bond, though seemingly restored, is no longer as solid as it once was. The trust that was once pure and untainted has been compromised, and no matter how hard we try to mend it, the fracture remains. In relationships where lies have entered, we often find ourselves caught in a cycle of disbelief and hurt, wondering if the truth will ever truly surface, and if the connection we once shared can ever be fully restored. Zen wisdom teaches us that true freedom is found when we release the lie and embrace the truth. Holding on to lies only keeps us bound to a distorted reality, a version of the relationship that no longer exists. The illusion of connection maintained by dishonesty only traps us in a state of confusion, preventing us from moving forward. To find peace and healing, we must let go of the lies, face the uncomfortable truths, and allow ourselves to step into the light of honesty. Only then can we begin to rebuild. whether that means rebuilding the relationship with someone else, or in some cases, rebuilding ourselves after the trauma of deception. Rebuilding trust is a long, difficult process. It cannot be done overnight. Trust is not something that can be easily fixed with empty promises or words. It takes time, consistency, and genuine effort. When lies have fractured the bond, the road to healing can feel impossible. Even with the best intentions, it may be that the damage caused by deceit is simply too great to overcome. Sometimes the only way to honor the truth and protect your own integrity is to walk away. Leaving does not signify giving up. It signifies a choice to honor your own dignity, peace, and well-being. By walking away from a relationship where trust has been shattered by lies, you are making a decision to no longer remain tethered to the illusion of connection. You are choosing to honor the truth of your experience, to reclaim your emotional freedom, and to prioritize relationships built on honesty and integrity. Staying in a relationship founded on lies is an act of self-sabotage because it keeps you trapped in a false reality where you cannot truly be yourself and where trust continues to erode. True relationships are built on trust, and they thrive when honesty and transparency are at their core. When lies are allowed to persist, the connection will always be hollow, no matter how much time has passed. By releasing the lies, we create the space for genuine connections, relationships grounded in truth, where trust is the foundation that supports everything else. And it is only when we embrace truth, no matter how painful it may be, that we open ourselves to the freedom of authentic relationships, ones that are built on the solid ground of mutual respect, openness, and honesty. Ultimately, the most important relationship you can have is with yourself. By choosing to walk away from relationships that are built on dishonesty, you honor your own worth, your need for authenticity, and your desire for peace. Embrace the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be, and know that the freedom and growth that comes from embracing reality will always lead you toward healthier, more fulfilling relationships in the future. Trust, once broken, may not be easily restored, but embracing the truth will always set you free. 7. When the energy exchange becomes one-sided. In any meaningful relationship, generosity is essential. It is the flow of giving and receiving, an exchange that nurtures both individuals involved. In Buddhism, the concept of dana, or generosity, is celebrated as a balanced act of kindness and selflessness. Generosity in relationships creates harmony, where each person contributes and receives in equal measure, ensuring that both feel valued and supported. When this balance is maintained, relationships thrive, and both parties experience growth, warmth, and connection. It is an ongoing cycle of care, respect, and understanding that sustains the relationship over time. However, when this balance is disrupted, when one person continually gives while the other takes without offering anything in return, the relationship becomes one-sided and the flow of energy is no longer harmonious. The giver becomes drained, their vitality slowly eroded by the constant act of pouring energy into someone who does not reciprocate. In these relationships, the giver often feels unappreciated and exhausted, while the taker remains unaffected, continuing to take without consideration for the other person's well-being. Zen teachings offer a powerful metaphor to illustrate this imbalance. The story tells of a gardener who spent years watering barren soil, hoping that his care and effort would eventually bring forth flowers or crops. Despite his tireless dedication, the soil remained unyielding, refusing to nourish anything he planted. Eventually, the gardener realized that his energy was being wasted on land that was incapable of supporting life. The soil was barren, and no amount of watering could change that. The gardener's efforts would have been better spent cultivating fertile ground, soil that could actually nurture the seeds he planted and allow them to grow and flourish. In relationships, this story serves as a poignant reminder. There are times when we pour our energy into people who are unwilling or unable to nurture us in return. We continue to give, hoping that our efforts will eventually be reciprocated, that our care will be acknowledged, and that the relationship will become balanced again. But just like the gardener, we may find that our efforts are ultimately in vain. No matter how much we give, the other person does not have the capacity to nourish us in the same way. We end up exhausted, emotionally depleted, and unfulfilled. When you recognize that a relationship is no longer nourishing you, it is time to redirect your energy. Just as the gardener realized that fertile ground would yield the best results, you must recognize when it is time to nurture yourself and seek out relationships that are reciprocal. Relationships that bring mutual care, understanding, and growth. Relationships that nourish your soul are those that provide balance, where both people are invested in the well-being of the other. These are the relationships that inspire you to be your best self, that lift you up and encourage your growth, rather than drain your energy and stunt your development. It is crucial to protect your vitality. Your energy is a precious resource, and it should be invested in relationships that contribute to your well-being, not those that leave you feeling depleted. Just as the gardener must choose where to direct his efforts, you too must choose where to invest your emotional, mental, and physical energy. Don't pour your life into relationships that leave you feeling empty, unnoticed, or unimportant. Recognize when it's time to step back, to protect your energy, and to reallocate it to connections that uplift and empower you. In some cases, this may mean letting go of relationships that have become one-sided, no matter how difficult that may be. It is not a sign of failure or selfishness, but rather an act of self-respect. By choosing to redirect your energy to places that nourish you, you are making space for deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Relationships that honor your worth, appreciate your contributions, and support your journey. Ultimately, relationships should be a source of mutual support and growth. When energy flows freely between two people, both individuals are nourished and the relationship strengthens. But when the energy exchange becomes one-sided, it is important to recognize the imbalance and make the decision to protect your vitality. Redirect your energy to relationships that bring balance and mutual care, and allow those that drain you to fade away. By doing so, you ensure that you are investing your energy in connections that will nurture your soul, allowing you to grow, thrive, and live in alignment with your true self. 8. When guilt chains. Guilt is a powerful, insidious force that can silently creep into our lives, often without us even realizing it. It has the potential to control, manipulate, and bind us to relationships that are unhealthy, toxic, and emotionally draining. Guilt convinces us that we are responsible for someone else's feelings or behavior, that we must bear the weight of their pain, their unhappiness, or their mistakes. It places an invisible chain around our hearts, making us feel obligated to endure suffering, even when it comes at the expense of our own well-being. In Buddhism, guilt is seen as arising from ignorance. It is the result of not fully understanding the nature of our own actions, the true causes of suffering, and the reality of our interconnectedness with others. Guilt, at its core, comes from a lack of clarity. It is a misperception, a distortion of reality. Instead of acknowledging that we are not responsible for the emotions or actions of others, we internalize guilt and carry the burden, allowing it to control our decisions, our behavior, and our relationships. When you feel guilty, it's important to pause and ask yourself, whose voice is making you feel this way? Is it your own internal sense of responsibility, or is it the voice of someone else? Often, guilt is used as a tool for manipulation, a way for others to exert control over you. Someone who seeks to keep you tied to them may use guilt to make you feel as though you owe them something, that you are the cause of their pain or distress. This manipulation can be subtle, insidious, and incredibly effective, especially when you care deeply for the person involved. Recognizing guilt for what it truly is, an emotional weapon used to control and manipulate, is the first step toward breaking free from its chains. When you see guilt for what it is, you can begin to detach from its hold. You can stop carrying the weight of someone else's emotions or actions and choose to protect your own peace of mind. Letting go of guilt is one of the most liberating acts of self-care you can undertake. It frees you from the emotional chains that have been placed on you, and it opens the door to personal healing and growth. Letting go of guilt is not about abandoning responsibility or being callous to the feelings of others. It's about recognizing that you are not responsible for the actions or emotions of others. It's about honoring your own boundaries and acknowledging that, while you may care deeply for someone, you are not obligated to carry the weight of their struggles or mistakes. By releasing guilt, you give yourself permission to prioritize your own well-being, your own healing, and your own growth. You allow yourself to live freely without the constant burden of emotional responsibility that others try to place on you. When you let go of guilt, you reclaim your peace. You no longer feel tied to relationships or situations that drain you, manipulate you, or hold you back. You regain control over your own life and begin to make decisions based on what is best for you, not based on what others have imposed upon you. This newfound freedom is empowering. It allows you to move forward, unburdened by the weight of unnecessary guilt, and to step into relationships that are based on mutual respect, understanding, and care. Relationships that support your growth and well-being rather than hinder it. The process of letting go of guilt can be difficult, especially when it has been ingrained in you for a long time. But with mindfulness, self-compassion, and reflection, it is possible to free yourself from its hold. By practicing self-awareness and asking yourself where the guilt is coming from, you can begin to see how it has been used as a tool for control. Recognizing that you are not responsible for someone else's feelings is a powerful realization. It's a reminder that you deserve to live in peace, free from emotional manipulation. Ultimately, the act of letting go of guilt is an act of self-liberation. It's about reclaiming your emotional autonomy and stepping into your own power. It's about choosing freedom over fear, lightness over heaviness, and peace over turmoil. When you release guilt, you allow yourself to move forward with clarity and purpose, unburdened by the emotional chains that others have tried to place on you. You give yourself the gift of freedom, and in doing so, you open up space for greater joy, peace, and fulfillment in your life. 9. When staying compromises your inner peace. Inner peace is not merely a luxury, it is the cornerstone of spiritual growth and the key to true well-being. Without inner peace, we become disconnected from the wisdom within us, unable to hear the gentle guidance of our hearts or the clarity of our true path. Peace is not a passive state, but an active foundation that allows us to engage with the world in a balanced and grounded way. When our inner peace is compromised, it disrupts every aspect of our lives, our thoughts, our emotions, and our spiritual connection. It creates confusion, stress, and turmoil, leaving us feeling lost, uncentered, and detached from our purpose. Relationships, for better or worse, have a profound impact on our inner peace. While healthy relationships can nourish and uplift us, toxic or chaotic relationships can rob us of our serenity, leaving us feeling drained and unsettled. When you find yourself in a relationship that consistently brings chaos, drama, or negative energy into your life, it disrupts the very essence of your spiritual journey. It makes it harder to stay grounded, to hear your inner wisdom, or to remain aligned with your higher self. Zen philosophy offers a powerful analogy to understand this situation. It teaches that if your house is on fire, you don't stay inside and argue with the flames. You leave. The fire is dangerous, and staying in the midst of it only causes harm. In the same way, when a relationship disrupts your inner peace and threatens your emotional and spiritual well-being, staying is not an act of loyalty or love, it's an act of self-sabotage. Zen wisdom teaches us that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for ourselves and for others is to walk away from what is causing us harm. Walking away is not failure. It is an affirmation of our right to live in peace, to protect our spirit, and to honor our spiritual path. The idea of letting go may feel difficult, especially if you've invested deeply in the relationship or if the person involved is someone you care about. There may be feelings of guilt, doubt, or fear that arise when you consider the idea of leaving. But it's important to remember that your peace is sacred. It is not something that should be sacrificed for the sake of another person's drama, negativity, or chaos. If a relationship is constantly disrupting your peace, it is necessary to prioritize your well-being. Letting go is not about abandoning the other person. It is about protecting your inner space so that you can continue your spiritual journey with clarity and serenity. You are not responsible for someone else's emotional turmoil, nor should you feel obligated to stay in a relationship that takes a toll on your peace of mind. When you constantly feel emotionally drained, anxious, or unsettled because of someone else's actions, it becomes impossible to cultivate the inner calm that is essential for your spiritual growth. Letting go of such relationships is an act of self-preservation, a way of creating space for the peace, clarity, and healing that you deserve. It's important to recognize that peace is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of alignment and clarity within. True peace comes from within, from the ability to remain centered no matter what external circumstances arise. When you release relationships that compromise your inner peace, you make room for healthier connections, relationships that support your growth, encourage your well-being, and allow you to remain true to your authentic self. These relationships will not drain your energy or create turmoil, but will help you flourish, grounded in peace and love. By walking away from a relationship that disturbs your inner peace, you are reaffirming your commitment to yourself and your spiritual path. You are choosing to honor your own journey, free from distractions and disruptions. It is an act of self-respect, a declaration that you are worthy of peace, clarity, and love. When you let go, you create the space necessary for healing, growth, and the continued unfolding of your true potential. It is through this act of releasing, of letting go, that you allow yourself to move forward on your path with a heart that is open, clear, and peaceful. Ultimately, choosing peace is choosing life. It is choosing to step into your highest potential, to walk the path of inner freedom, and to honor the sacredness of your journey. Letting go is never easy, especially when the relationships have been part of your life for so long. But in Buddhism, impermanence is key. The very nature of life is change, and some relationships, however meaningful they were in the past, are no longer aligned with who you are now. Releasing toxic or draining connections creates space for healing, growth, and more authentic relationships to enter your life. By letting go of what no longer serves you, you make room for what will help you become your truest self. Embrace the wisdom of impermanence, honor the nature of change, and trust that by releasing, you are opening the door to a life of peace, fulfillment, and spiritual freedom. In the words of the Buddha, peace comes from within. By letting go of relationships that no longer support your journey, you are walking the path to true peace.